In 1977, a pregnant Argentinian woman was flown to the bottom of the planet and tasked with giving birth here, in one of the harshest environments in the world. And against all odds, in 1978, Emilio Palma became the first human being to be born in Antarctica. After that, 10 more people were born there, for a total of 8 Argentinians and 3 Chileans. This baby war between the two countries was because they had claimed overlapping land near the South Pole. The babies were a quiet competition to strengthen those claims, because the people born there would be sort of native Antarcticans. Nowadays, countries have moved on from babies, but not from strategically placing themselves on the frozen continent, one that's rich in resources, but so far doesn't belong to anyone. And with most of the polar focus on the squabbles over the Arctic, some countries have been gaining ground nearly unnoticed. It's a story of James Bond buildings, walls of ice nearly 5 kilometers tall, global cooperation, and a very tiny shrimp. So what's going on in Antarctica? Welcome to the highest, driest, wettest, iciest, coldest, and windiest place on the planet. It's a frozen desert 1.5 times the size of the United States, with nearly no rain, and at the same time has a lot of resources we really want.
The largest resource now in the Antarctic, I would say, is its fresh water.
Daniela Liggett teaches and researches Antarctic governance and geopolitics. That's her in Antarctica.
Around, I think, 75% of the world's fresh water is stored in the Antarctic ice sheets.
They've been frozen for so long that scientists have found ice 100,000 years old. And underneath that ice lies a whole continent. There are mountains, remnants of forests, and hundreds of lakes, as well as copper, iron, uranium, gold, and even diamonds. The ocean current around Antarctica is the strongest in the world and acts like a conveyor belt, transporting water and nutrients around the planet. And in that ocean are massive amounts of krill, tiny shrimp that make up the main diet of whales and remove the equivalent of 5 million cars worth of CO2 from the atmosphere every year. Swimming with them are prized toothfish, known in restaurants as Chilean sea bass. Also under the ice are around 500 billion barrels of oil, the second largest reserves in the world after the Middle East, as well as 300 to 500 billion tons of natural gas. So oil and gas, fish, krill, minerals, and freshwater, to say it's rich in resources is an understatement. But here's the thing, accessing them is either forbidden or restricted. Antarctica is one of the few places that could fall under the term terra nullius, land belonging to no one. Instead, it's governed by a one-of-a-kind international agreement by more than 50 nations. But it wasn't always this way. There's evidence that Maori were the first to see Antarctica in the 7th century. James Cook was the first European to cross the Antarctic Circle in the 1700s. By the 1900s, 7 countries claimed slices of it. In 1956, India complained, bringing the question of Antarctica to the UN.
The fear that Antarctica as a continent could be militarized, or the fact that nuclear weapons could be deployed or tested in the continent was something that India had apprehensions about.
Hanashri Jairam is a senior assistant professor working on a range of global environmental governance issues.
So the approach generally adopted by India towards Antarctica is that of the common heritage of mankind, of humankind, as one would say right now.
A year of international scientific cooperation followed India's complaint. Combined, they paved the way for the Antarctic Treaty, which devoted the continent to peace and science. The treaty strikes down those 7 land claims, forbids military activity, and mandates research sharing. Any member of the UN can join, and countries meet once a year to negotiate treaty updates and share scientific observations. To vote in these negotiations, countries must conduct research in Antarctica, which has led to the construction of many stations to do so. Discussions about overfishing and whaling also led to a commission to protect the southern oceans. It has since established catch limits around the continent and marine protected areas where fishing is more restricted or banned entirely. And over the next decade, negotiations eventually led to a ban on mining and other resource extraction. Today, there are 58 countries who have signed the treaty, 29 of whom can participate in decision-making about the southernmost continent. The success of this treaty is unprecedented. Countries have been able to put geopolitics aside and work together for science like nowhere else in the world. But this cooperation has recently become less stable. Even though the Antarctic Treaty invalidates those historical land claims, Chile, Australia, and the United Kingdom submitted documents to the UN in the 2000s, claiming the ocean off the coast of their former territories. And in 2015, Norway went a step further. They said that their policy in the Antarctic has been based on the assertion of Norwegian territorial claims. Geopolitical tensions are also increasingly spilling over into annual negotiations.
You've got greater bloc formation, especially now with the Russian invasion into Ukraine.
Considering all of this, there's a lot of talk about 2048, the year that any country part of the treaty can propose to renegotiate it. There are fears of lifting the mining ban and opening up Antarctica to resource extraction. But for anything fundamental to change, 3/4 of the countries must agree and have new mining laws in place. That seems unlikely, but what is worrying is that some countries are starting to test out the treaty's limits. One way is through fishing. Unlike the treaty itself, marine protected areas will expire in a few decades. New ones have been in discussion for years.
We have seen there's been a lot of pushback by countries that are interested in the fisheries of the region, and which has also affected like krill population.
Russia and China have vetoed instating new ones. We requested an interview with the Russian and Chinese Antarctic bodies, but never heard back. There's been an increase in illegal fishing around Antarctica in the last 10 years. So even with the restrictions, there's more krill catch, as well as bycatch of other species. Krill is particularly important because it's a keystone species. A decline in krill threatens the whole Antarctic ecosystem, and it's also bad for us, as krill remove millions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere every year. Krill is used in supplements and to feed the growing number of fish farms. Norwegian company Aker Biomarine does the majority of the fishing. Members of conservation organization Sea Shepherd say trawlers go directly through feeding whales. Also concerning is what's happening on the continent itself. Even though the Antarctic Treaty forbids military activity, some stations contain technology that could be militarized.
There are monitoring stations which could be used for global activities around, shipping. It could also help with military activities in other parts of the world.
There aren't supposed to be weapons or military tech in Antarctica at all.
We already see that there are some sort of security presence, especially for the protection of scientific communities or research stations and bases on Antarctica. It could be private security or other kinds of security. So that is one concern.
Also concerning is the search for oil, something else banned by the treaty. In 2020, Russia conducted a survey specifically to assess the oil and gas-bearing prospects of the Antarctic shelf. A Moscow State University paper also maps the location of oil-containing rocks. And already tense negotiations desperately need to deal with increasing tourism. Over 120,000 tourists went to Antarctica in 2023-2024 season, over 10 times as many people as the early 90s. And with more people comes more damage to wildlife and ecosystems that regulate the global climate. These tensions are concerning because Antarctic science affects the whole world. Scientists there noticed one of the most important discoveries of the 20th century, the hole in the ozone layer. This observation was such an existential threat to life on Earth that countries immediately joined forces to close it. And if anything, studying Antarctica has gotten more urgent.
Antarctica is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world. It's lost trillions of tons of ice since the 2000s.
An iceberg the size of Chicago just broke off in January 2025. If the whole continent were to melt, sea levels would rise by 58 meters. Only 10 meters would already put many coastal areas underwater, so the consequences would be devastating. Studying Antarctica can help predict changes affecting the rest of the globe. And there are ways to better protect it. You personally can stop buying products with krill.
The pharmaceutical industry makes a lot of money from pushing like your omega-3 acids from wild krill. And that's coming mostly from the Antarctic.
On a governmental level, there are already incredibly strong laws and regulations in place to protect the continent. Countries just need to devote more resources to them. Governance for Antarctic tourism is in the works, but because of negotiation tensions, it's slow going. To try and fix that, countries could collaborate on scientific activity more, which would also allow more countries a seat at the table.
It's a consensus-based system. You're only as strong as the weakest link. And I think investing in that, finding mutual values and emphasizing those in order to overcome this impasse that currently exists.
And some experts are calling for a forever ban on resource extraction now, instead of waiting to see if parties want to review the treaty. But ultimately, Antarctica needs attention. With more resources devoted to negotiations and observation of what's happening on the continent, countries can strengthen the cooperation and keep Antarctica protected. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for in-depth climate reporting past the doom and gloom.